The Aegean Sea, known for its beauty and ancient legends, has long been a crossroads of cultures, trade, and dreams. Its tranquil blue waters have inspired poets and travelers for centuries. Yet beneath the surface of myth and serenity, the Aegean became a scene of tragedy and heartbreak. On the night of February 3, 2026, darkness fell over the water, masking the dangers that lurked ahead. A small, overloaded boat carrying desperate migrants, men, women, and children, collided with a Greek Coast Guard vessel near the island of Chios, just miles from safety. In an instant, hope turned to horror as the fragile boat capsized, plunging its terrified passengers into the cold, unforgiving water under the cover of night. 15 people lost their lives that night, their dreams of safety and a new beginning ending just short of the European shore. Survivors clung to debris, waiting for help that seemed impossibly far away. This was not a natural disaster, but a man-made catastrophe, one born of desperation, policy, and perilous journeys. The overloaded vessel, packed far beyond its limits, was no match for the steel hull of the patrol ship. The odds were stacked against those on board from the very start. The collision's aftermath was chaos. Cries for help and confusion echoing across the waves, lost in the vastness of the sea as panic set in. The Greek Coast Guard, now forced into the role of rescuers, scrambled to save as many lives as possible in the darkness, pulling survivors from the frigid water. But the cold, confusion, and strong currents made survival nearly impossible for many, as hypothermia and exhaustion set in. The tragedy sent shockwaves through Greece and beyond, highlighting the deadly risks migrants face and sparking urgent calls for change. These were not just statistics. They were families, individuals, and children, each with hopes and stories, seeking a future free from fear. Their deaths demand not only mourning, but answers and action from leaders and communities alike. The incident stands as one of Greece's worst shipwrecks in recent years, a tragedy that will not soon be forgotten. It is a stark reminder of the human cost of migration and the dangers people are willing to face to escape war, poverty, and hopelessness. The Aegean, once a symbol of hope and possibility, became a grave for those who risked everything for a chance at life. A tragedy that calls us all to reflect and respond. The migrant boat was dangerously overcrowded. 39 people crammed into an 8-meter vessel, with barely enough space to sit or move. Every inch was filled, and the weight of so many lives pressed down on the fragile hull, making the journey even more perilous. Human smugglers, prioritizing profit over safety, sent them out under the cover of darkness, knowing the risks but caring little for the people's fate. The boat had no navigation lights, making it nearly invisible on the open sea, a tactic meant to evade detection by authorities, but one that left the passengers even more vulnerable. The Greek Coast Guard eventually spotted the vessel and signaled for it to stop, hoping to prevent disaster. But in a moment of panic or confusion, the overloaded boat reportedly made a sudden, fatal maneuver, perhaps trying to escape. The collision was immediate and violent. The small boat capsized, throwing everyone into the cold, unforgiving sea. Chaos erupted as people struggled to stay afloat. Life jackets were scarce, and the frigid water made survival unlikely. Many clung desperately to debris, fighting exhaustion and fear. Of the 39 on board, only 25 survived, pulled from the water by rescuers or managing to reach safety on their own. 14 bodies were recovered from the sea, and one more died later in hospital, bringing the tragic toll to 15 lives lost. Survivors faced not only physical trauma, but the overwhelming grief of losing loved ones, friends, and family members in an instant. The journey, meant to bring hope and a new beginning, ended in disaster and heartbreak for so many. The overloaded boat was a death trap, a grim reality faced by countless people seeking safety and a better life. The survivors are left with scars, both visible and invisible, that will last a lifetime, a haunting reminder of the price paid for hope. After the collision, the Coast Guard's mission shifted instantly to rescue. 5 vessels and a helicopter scoured the dark sea, racing against time and cold. Survivors, men, women, and 11 miners, were scattered, struggling to stay afloat. Each rescue was a small victory, but the crews also faced the grim task of recovering bodies. On board, survivors were in shock, wrapped in blankets, and rushed to medical care. The psychological toll was immense. Many had lost family and friends before their eyes. Even after the initial rescue, the search continued, uncertain if all were accounted for. The vastness of the sea made the task nearly impossible. Some victims would never be found, leaving families with only questions and pain. The operation underscored the relentless danger of these crossings. As details emerged, it became clear these were not faceless migrants, but individuals, mostly from Afghanistan, fleeing war and oppression. At least one Moroccan was among them, highlighting the diversity of those risking everything for a new life. 11 miners survived, a heartbreaking testament to families' desperation. Parents brought children, hoping for safety and a future. The tragedy shattered families and extinguished dreams. Each victim had a story, a reason for risking the sea. Their deaths are more than statistics, they are lost potential and broken families. We may never know all their names, but we know they sought sanctuary. Their stories remind us to see the human faces behind the headlines. The Greek government quickly blamed human smugglers for the tragedy, pointing to a familiar pattern in such disasters. Officials accused traffickers of sending desperate people to sea in unsafe, overcrowded boats, risking lives for profit. At the same time, government spokespeople praised the Coast Guard's rescue efforts, framing them as heroes, acting under immense pressure. The official account claims the migrant boat made a sudden, dangerous maneuver, which led directly to the collision with the patrol vessel. Critics, however, question how a small, fragile dinghy could truly endanger a much larger, well-equipped patrol vessel. The government's narrative focuses on smugglers as villains orchestrating the crisis from the shadows, migrants as helpless victims, and the Coast Guard as selfless rescuers risking their own safety. This framing simplifies a complex event, potentially obscuring other factors, such as operational decisions or communication failures. By emphasizing the evil of trafficking, authorities deflect scrutiny from their own procedures and the actions of officials on the scene. The truth may be more nuanced than the official story suggests, with unanswered questions lingering over the incident. Parliamentary questions and independent investigations highlight growing skepticism about the Coast Guard's account and the government's response. The search for accountability continues, as families and advocates demand transparency amid a tangle of competing narratives and shifting blame. Human rights groups and opposition parties are demanding a transparent investigation into the Chios collision. The Greek Coast Guard has faced past allegations of illegal pushbacks, fueling distrust. A formal inquiry is underway, but concerns remain about its independence. The investigation must gather testimony from both Coast Guard crew and survivors. Survivors' voices are crucial, but trauma and fear may hinder their accounts. The shadow of the 2023 perilous shipwreck, where hundreds died, looms large. That tragedy raised questions about Coast Guard actions and credibility. For a credible investigation, survivors need legal support and safety assurances. Only with transparency can the full truth of the Chios disaster emerge. The outcome will shape trust in future rescue operations. The Chios collision is just the latest in a long line of migrant shipwrecks in Greek waters. Greece's proximity to Turkey makes it a key, yet perilous, entry point to Europe. The Aegean has claimed thousands of lives as migrants attempt the crossing. The 2015-2016 crisis saw nearly 1 million arrivals, but also countless deaths. EU-Turkey agreements reduced arrivals, but pushed migrants onto riskier routes. The 2023 Pylos disaster, with over 600 dead, remains a haunting example. Despite tougher policies, desperate people continue to risk everything at sea. Each tragedy exposes the limits of deterrence and the enduring power of hope. the Aegean remains a frontier between despair and possibility. Too often, it becomes a final resting place for those seeking safety. Why do people risk such dangerous journeys? For many, the sea's dangers pale compared to what they're fleeing. War, persecution, and poverty drive families to gamble everything for a chance at life. Europe represents hope, safety, and rights worth any risk. Smugglers exploit this desperation, charging high fees for perilous crossings. As long as safe, legal routes are closed, people will turn to smugglers. The journey is a testament to human resilience and the universal desire for a better life. Migrants know the risks, but hope outweighs fear. They bet their lives on reaching safety for their families. Each crossing is a story of courage and desperation. The hope that drives them is stronger than the sea's dangers. The Chios tragedy must be a wake-up call for Europe and the world. Mourning is not enough. Systemic change is needed to prevent more deaths. Relying on deterrence and border fortification only drives migrants to riskier routes. Safe, legal pathways for asylum seekers are essential to undercut smugglers. Humanitarian visas, resettlement programs, and accessible asylum processes can save lives. International cooperation must address the root causes of migration: conflict, poverty, and oppression. People flee because they have no choice, not because they want to. In the short term, search and rescue must be prioritized and made transparent. Every death at sea must be investigated to ensure accountability. The cost of inaction is measured in human lives. We cannot afford more tragedy.